Ordered! Send Lowerhouse to save the house! Come on, the house!
Welcome to Lowerhouse Cricket Club's podcast, the Housecast. Bit of a new innovation this. We've done a couple before, Joe.
Yeah.
But we're in person.
Fantastic.
You've got your pint of lager. I've got my pint of real ale. No, I nearly had one of our guests. So it's something that we can do. We're going to just chat and we're going to talk through this particular podcast. I'm really looking forward to it, Joe. But before we get into the guests, how's things going? It's just before the start of the season now, so you're fully fit and you're ready to go?
I'm as fit as I can be, I think. I'm a year older, a year stiffer.
Right. So a year
Take
older.
that however you want.
A year older
Yeah.
is, what are you now? Can we ask your
Yeah,
age?
I'm 32.
And can we
I'm
32.
And
And you've made your debut
2009.
9 and you've missed one game.
Yeah.
I am going to do some research so I can come up with facts and figures of how many games you've played and these records that you're breaking. But I know you're unassuming
fantastic.
and
Yeah,
you don't like talking about it, but I am going to do it.
Okay, excellent.
So let's move on to the guest today. As people are aware, Joe and myself often walk around the ground for hours and hours. We also chat to a lot of spectators and followers who are on the ground. These three particular individuals, we sit and chat, and I've tried for the last 2, 3, 4 years to get them to come on the podcast. I've secretly recorded them. I've overtly recorded them, but it's never just the same when we sat there, because someone walks past and talks. So,
it's usually Iggy, isn't it, actually?
it's usually Iggy that goes
usually comes in.
Totally unaware.
Yeah, and takes and completely messes it all up. But thankfully, because of Andrew, the liaison that myself and Andrew have done, we've managed to get the three people in the room. We've got a lot of material down in emails and in discussions that we've had that we're going to talk about. And we can't get away from the fact of who we're going to be talking about and why we're talking about him. It's our, the legend of the cricket club who passed away over 10 years ago, David Wren, and we've got his family here. We've got Andrew, we've got Judith, we've got Laura. I really, really appreciate you coming in. I appreciate all the work that you've sent. Crikey, Laura sent me an email. I've copied it across. It's about 6 pages. Andrew sent me quite a few things that, I think the way it worked, Andrew, I sent you the initial email.
Yeah.
Anyway, Andrew, welcome.
Hello.
You're going to be the spokesperson to start off.
Okay, that's fine.
And we started it by me sending you an email with a lot of sensitive material in it, saying have a real good look at it.
Yeah.
But come up with points, and I just give little suggestions. Well, you were CC'd in, John.
Yeah, I was CC'd
It was
in,
fantastic. As stuff were coming back, and I could remember, I forgot about that, and I got that wrong. So really appreciate it, Andrew.
Yeah,
so thanks
no
very
problem.
much for coming
You're
on.
welcome.
How are you? How's things?
Yeah.
Is your spring going
All
all
good.
right, and looking forward to the summer?
Yeah, can't wait.
Yeah.
Winter's gone quick.
Yeah,
As it
no,
does when
that's
you get
good.
older,
That's
doesn't
good.
it? Yeah.
You still following the Clarets? Are you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Not enjoying it really this season.
No. And I suppose that
No.
makes it even easier when we're going to come into the spring and then into the summer. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, great.
Put it behind us.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And again, like we've done before, sometimes it might be 4 or 5 weeks before we see each other at the game, and then other times it's
I don't
2 or
get on
3
as often
times.
as I used to, but
No,
whereas I'd
but
like
when the
to.
weather's good, we do
Gotta
get
be
down.
there, yeah.
So Laura, I'll come to you next. Thanks very much for coming on. Really appreciate it. Thanks for your email. As I've said, you've given us loads of info there. We've so much to chat about. And the more I read it, the more I'm thinking of the funny stories that we've had when you were scoring for us and all the times you had down here. Are you all right coming on and chatting to us about this? Everything going to be good?
Yeah, good,
That
thank
sounds
you.
good.
We're
That
nervous.
sounds good.
Yeah, we're all a bit
I know. Yeah.
Got a jig.
I keep saying it's only present.
I know, that's right. Well, it's worth telling the listeners that Stan's very kindly offered us all a drink. So me and Andrew have got half a mild shandy, and Judith and Laura have got double gins. So
For
that's
free,
good.
so.
For free, yeah. And Joe's just on his third lager. So Judith, over to you. Thanks very much for offering to come on. I think,
Offering.
well, being persuaded.
Mild arm twisting. I think,
Mild
Jess, wasn't
arm
there?
twisting. I do think that you were the stumbling block,
She
if
was.
reading between the lines.
Yeah,
But there really is, as we've said, and the listeners they'll be in awe of listening to this podcast and to listening to what you three have got to say and how fantastic the times were. So just be as natural as you can. We can take as long or as short as we want, and we can do it again. We can do more. We can add things in and we can take things out. So please, all just be as natural as possible. Joe, anything you want to add before we go on to the life and times of David Wren?
Well, I think on a normal game, and on one of my laps round, I always venture to the top benches and have a chat with some like-minded people, and Clive. To have a chat, and it's always really lovely, right? It's
Good.
always, nice to see everybody and just very pleasant. I always pick you out to make sure that I can go. Right, I'm going to speak to the Wrens
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I'm going to have a lovely time, so it'll be fine. Because
People
we'll
don't
talk about
realise that.
lots of
No.
things.
When we're walking around, we target. We look. There.
So if you're not getting spoken to, you know.
There,
We're
there,
targeting
leg it.
someone else. So Judith, let's just go right back to as early as you can remember, the times of moving back to Burnley in 1984. Yeah.
Yes.
So your memories, what were your memories of? You came from Stoke, I think. Is
Yeah.
that right? Yeah. And Stafford area, and then you came over to Burnley. Just tell us about that. Why Burnley? Who?
Well, David was from Burnley.
Yeah, okay.
So we came back and bought the paper shop on Lowerhouse Lane on the corner of Audley Street.
Yeah.
Bought that. Our parents thought we were crackers
So that was 84 when you actually bought it.
Yeah.
Right, crikey.
because we both had good jobs in health service and
Yeah.
Which is why you moved down to Stafford in the
yeah,
first
David
place,
got
isn't it?
promotion and that's
Yeah,
why we
and then you
on.
moved down there
Service.
with work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then decided to come back.
Yeah.
And why a post office? That. you
Oh,
know,
it was news agent.
a news agent. Sorry. Yeah. The
I
news
don't
agent.
know.
Just
It
one
was
of
really
Dad's
hard work.
ideas.
Yeah. Was it?
David's parents had had shops on
Right.
Padding Road and
Right, okay.
he always wanted to have a shop.
Right. All
So
right.
we came
Brilliant.
back.
It were hard work,
The
wasn't
first
it?
night we were there, somebody broke in and stole all the cigarettes.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So people were coming in for the paper and the 20 Capstan full strength, and we had no cigarettes to sell. So that went very good.
And weren't there a hole in the roof?
Yeah, we had girders up.
Right.
Lived in it with girders holding.
Yeah, I don't remember.
So you lived
Ceiling.
above it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It was tiny, wasn't it?
yeah, we tried.
I mean, for the benefit of people who are listening now, the paper shop, it's been a paper shop till
Yeah, for
time
a long
immemorial. It's
time,
right
yeah.
opposite the Chinese.
Slightly further up,
Butchers.
opposite
Slightly up.
Butchers.
Yeah, right, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, further up, away from the lane ends, opposite the butchers,
Yeah.
with the park the other side
That's
of you.
it. Andrew
And then the
Murray's
chippy
up there.
further up, is that right?
There is one
Yes,
further
on
up.
the other
Is
side
that
of
on
the
the
road.
other side? My geography's appalling, Jess. I just tried to get involved. I don't know anything.
It's not a paper
Jackson-
shop
Jackson's
anymore. It's just
No, but it's only quite
empty
recent,
shop.
isn't it?
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
3-4 years.
Yeah. Because I think the owner of it, or a couple of owners since, have come down here, haven't they? And they've enjoyed coming down. Yeah.
John and
What's it called?
Iris.
John and
Yeah,
Iris
yeah.
Jordan.
Yeah, that's right. So you move over, big call, still very close to the cricket club. Was there any pull in David going to the shop because of the cricket club, do
No,
you think?
no.
Nothing whatsoever. He didn't even...
But we used to say the Daily Telegraph at Clifford Atherton.
Right, so tell us about that.
So Clifford used to come in for his Daily Telegraph
Right.
and stayed quite a while.
Yeah, he used to come
Talking
back,
to
didn't
Dave, yeah.
he? Yeah.
and kind of persuaded David to come down.
Right, so that's Clifford's coming in because I remember him used to do the Telegraph crossword. Did Clifford in the dressing room?
Did he?
Yeah, he'd come in and sit there. So he's got the Telegraph from your. From
we
your...
used to have to save it for him because not really a Daily Telegraph sort of an area.
No, yeah.
And if we got to a couple of telegraphs and they disappeared, so we had to save them for Clifford.
Yeah.
So you and David worked in the shop, so you were both
Yeah.
at Clifford. Just describe Clifford to us at that time.
He was enthusiastic.
Yeah.
And he was still working at the time, but when he were actually at work, I don't know, because he spent a lot of time in the shop.
Yeah.
An hour at a time,
Oh,
probably.
really?
Yeah, he used to give me and Laura £1 each. So
Yeah, every
we
week.
liked
Every
him
week.
coming.
Every week.
Yeah.
When's Clifford coming?
What did you do as a
Well, I was just going
job?
to. He worked for quite a while after that. He was a sales rep.
Right.
I can see him as a salesman.
Yeah.
It was Clifford
Yeah.
Atherton. So, for the benefit of people who are listening, it's Clifford Atherton, obviously, who's passed away a number of years ago. His lad still comes on, Peter. He's very very enthusiastic still, but
Yes.
Clifford is featured on so many podcasts, Judith, about stories from Stan and stories from other people, mainly about mainly about his driving.
Talking about that on the way in.
Yeah, and his enthusiasm, how excited he was all the time. And I'm
Yeah.
trying to quickly work out ages of people here. And I think he went on for another 10 years. He got almost like a new car every 2 or 3 years, and it'd be a fancy Cortina or the odd Capri. And he'd literally come on ground and do a wheel spin, like starting up in the car park, showing off in
Announce
his
his new car.
Yeah, his new Ford Mondeo 1.8 GT or something. So that's 84. So how long were you in that paper shop then?
How long were we in that shop?
I was 7 in 1984 and I was 11 when we moved out.
Right, so 88-ish.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
and then we
You're
moved
better at
to
maths than me.
Copeland, and we bought a new shop on
Yeah.
Copeland Lane.
So I vividly remember that because I lived around that area. So that's late 80s.
Yeah.
You bought that. Probably a bit busier, a bit bigger shop.
Yeah, it was.
than
It
here?
was busy.
yeah.
Yeah.
The one on Lowerhouse Lane was busy at school times, going to school, coming home from school. All
Okay.
the kids used to come in.
And so between 84 and 88, Clifford's coming in, chatted away. Did he talk about the cricket club at the time?
Oh, yeah,
Because he
all
was
the time,
heavily
yeah.
involved all the time.
Yeah, persuaded David to come down, and David were on the committee.
Right. So talk us through
Well,
that,
we were
how
on
he
the
managed
committee.
that, and
Yeah, he just
just kept at him.
kept at him.
And did David become enthusic about it, or
Clifford
do you
must
think
have
he
saw
was
something in
I
Dan
think so.
that made
That's what I'm
him
trying to
want
get
him
at.
to-
Yeah.
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 Yeah, he were enthusiastic.
Yeah, because I remember chatting to David about it, and he would say, "Oh, it's all Clifford's fault I'm down here." When he went up to here with everything, it's all Clifford's fault. And I'm thinking, well, you must have had a choice.
Yeah.
haven't you? You really
Maybe
got
it would
pushed
to
in.
shut Clifford up.
Initially,
I'll come.
Yeah, I'll
what
come
I'm
down
saying,
initially.
yeah.
I suppose it could be. Yeah.
And at the time, I think Harold Astin was the treasurer.
Yeah.
And then after Harold died, David became the treasurer.
Yeah. So do
I
you know
have no
what
idea
year?
when that-
No. Would you be at the Coastal Lane shop then? Do you
No,
think?
I think we were
you were
at
still
Lowerhouse,
here. So you're looking mid-80s towards the end of that. So David comes down as treasurer, and I think it's worth. Obviously, you can't remember any of this.
You weren't born,
I was.
yeah.
It's nearly a decade before I was born.
Before you were born. So you do read a lot of things.
I do, yeah.
I'm mid-20s, getting in the first team quite a bit, and it was turmoil. It really was, from what I remember. And like I said, we could have Stan coming in. Stan's just been here chatting away to us, but we want to talk through that period and how difficult it was for someone who's come down. I know David loved cricket and played a certain amount of cricket, but to come down into talk about jumping out of the pot into the fire. He's really took the bull by the horns. But I've got to say, and I can't remember what Harold Astin did. I know about the Jack Hayes stories when he was chair, and I know about the secretary, Joe Waterworth, and all these sort of people. But that must have been a difficult job, even back then, before David got heavily involved. Did he bring much of the, I don't like saying problems, much of the work from the cricket club home and talk you through it, or?
No, not really.
No.
No, I didn't.
Because he was heavily involved, wasn't he?
Oh,
when you're
yeah.
getting then towards the early 90s.
frustrated
Yeah.
as well with
Yeah.
how people wouldn't move along with him.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
they were very clever like that.
Yeah.
very,
Yeah.
Mm.
And that's
Forward thinking, weren't
Yeah.
you? Could
Yeah.
see it.
Yeah.
And you're right there, Laura, and that's a long time before we even started doing that. If you remember, pros like Cameron Williamson and the ones that we wanted to push forward, and I'm not saying we wanted to get rid of the older players, but it was time to move on.
Yeah.
And David, that's why, I was so enthusiastic when I was being a regular in the first team and getting towards captain. He was so supportive. And you're thinking, why is this? My dad was great.
Yeah.
But why is this person wanting to
Yeah.
push this on? But so he's had it from that early age,
Yeah,
that early
yeah.
time here, hasn't he, as well? I mean, can you remember much of it, Andrew, at that time? I know you were
Not
very,
really.
very young.
I mean, if you were to ask me what my earliest memory is,
Yeah.
I don't think I have one. I think we were just here that much. That,
Yeah,
It's like our playground, isn't it?
yeah. So, yeah. But
Yeah.
in terms of Dad, no, I don't remember him joining the committee. I was
No.
probably too young. And
yeah.
I
But
would
I'm
have been
thinking
playing
more
off park,
his frustrations and his
Yeah,
wanting to
yeah.
push it on. Because, once you get to your early teens, you're
Yeah.
seeing little bits of that,
Yeah.
the pair of you. And that's why I think this is such a remarkable story, and it's so good to talk about it, because it's all right us players, and it's all right fans saying, "Oh, this is rubbish, that's rubbish, we should do this, we should." But David did something about it. That's the difference.
Well,
isn't it?
yeah, that's what he was like.
Yeah.
He wanted the best that could possibly be.
And he knew how to do it somehow,
Yeah,
didn't
he
he?
did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And was that just in the cricket or in everything else?
Everything.
What other stories?
Like houses, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like he'd
we're
take us to
always-
look at a house and we'd be like, oh, it's awful.
Yeah.
We'd be like, no, you
you
didn't.
see the vision and
Right.
And then we'd
what
end
it
up
could
getting
be.
it.
Yeah.
yeah.
And that again is not just for projects like that or work or cricket club, but it's positivity.
Yeah.
He always had that, no matter how rubbish we were on a Saturday afternoon, he'd come in and he'd find something
Yeah.
the following day. When I was captain, he'd ring me or he'd meet me on a Tuesday or something, which is a rare, it's rare, isn't it, in most walks of life, never mind
Does it?
a voluntary cricket club
Yeah,
where
nobody
you've got
gets-
someone
yeah.
coming in. And the finances at that time, I mean, I'm not really sure, I don't know if you know, Judith, we must have been in turmoil. With,
Well, yeah, the amount of fundraising we were.
yeah, that's right.
Tumble sales.
Jumbles, sponsored
You know.
walks.
Yeah.
Same people turning up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
same 10 people.
And as much as, you put that in the email, Laura, that as much as it was difficult at the time, and we all got involved, as many as we could, whether it was 10 or 100, your dad was always at the back of it, was always behind it. And even if someone else got the kudos of, we've raised £100 for this, your dad was pushing and pushing. What did you ever think as a youngster, once you get to 10 and 13, do I really need this? Did that ever occur
I
to you?
don't think so.
No.
Like you say, he took people along with him.
Yeah, he
So
did.
we were
Yeah.
along with him,
Yeah.
weren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd go along, and you yourself as well, Andrew. Were you just to go along with that?
Yeah, I mean,
It was like a wave.
yeah.
It
I
was.
don't know really. It was different at home than it was in professional life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Well, it
people-
wasn't. I mean, it always like at school, it'd encourage us in his.
Yeah, we had
his
to do our
exams
best,
and all
didn't we?
that. Yeah.
He once said to Laura that she had to go in her bedroom and not come out until it was pristine.
yeah.
I didn't know what that was.
You had to look it up.
And then he said, or else I'm coming in with a bin bag. Oh, no. Yeah, he had very high standards,
He did.
didn't he?
Yeah, we're always trying to improve. I think
Yeah,
that's-
yeah. And that is again a real
Yeah.
trait that,
Yeah.
that I saw when when you're saying that he's trying to improve you. But he would tell us off. He would. There was times,
yes.
us as cricketer grown men,
know.
and he would say, this is not right. What's
Yeah, we were
happening?
back at quite a few times.
Yeah.
Scary a bit as well.
Yeah, he had that. You could see the red mist sometimes,
Yeah.
and you could
Yeah,
see that.
absolutely.
But he was all right with
Yeah.
certain people and players because he knew you were trying your
Yeah,
best. And
yeah.
the others that maybe
Yeah,
weren't.
when
Yeah.
you weren't doing your best.
But I'm guessing that's not something that affected your lives as a
Oh, no.
family at
No,
home. It was
no.
something that maybe on the
Yeah,
straight
the
and narrow,
standards.
you know.
Yeah, the
You knew what
standards,
pristine was after
I
that.
did. My room is pristine.
Yeah, brilliant. So then we go on up to nearly when you're born. We go on into the 90s, and he's almost, is manipulation the right word, around other members and committee people, and he's trying to get people on board, isn't he? Can you, and again, I'm sorry, Judith, it's probably a question for you, can you remember him falling out with the older brigade at all, and having issues with not just the finance, but we need to move on from this? We're not a social club that has a bit of a cricket ground. We need to move on. Because I remember that there were some issues, you know, and we don't need to mention names, but what was that like at that time for you and just for you and
He did bring
David?
it home to a certain extent.
He must have.
Yeah,
He must have brought it home.
but he didn't talk about it
No.
that much.
No.
You could see it all going through his
Yeah.
mind, though, couldn't
Yeah.
you? Like,
And we'd
what
be
can I
rabbitting
do?
away about something else. And
Yeah.
sure, I'm trying to
Yeah.
think.
And when you look at that, was a massive challenge, you know. And the people that we're talking about here, you know, they've passed away. They're the real old Wren, the committee that kept the club going through
course.
really
they
tough
did,
times,
Yeah.
but were not really keen on moving it on, which happens.
They weren't interested in the cricket, really.
They weren't. No, they weren't. No, and the stories that are on the back of that are fantastic. You know, we can't, like I said, we're not criticising that era. That was life at the time. And you look at some of the podcasts and the stories Anne Cochran tells, it's amazing what's gone on. But we needed that person to push us over the edge. And, you know, thankfully, you know, Stan will say, you know, my dad and other coaches were bringing cricketers on as well. And I bet your dad could see that. I bet he could see. What was he like after cricket games when he was treasurer? When he first came as treasurer and you're coming down to support him and you're with him, what was he like for that afternoon or that evening or the following day if we'd been beaten badly?
It definitely dictated the
Yes,
weekend.
it did. The same as the football did.
Right.
He'd been on a match. Well, he'd always been on a football match.
Yeah.
And we got beat. It definitely affected his mood. Definitely.
So that was the same with Burnley football.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not
I
as
guess-
much.
Not as much. No.
But he also couldn't change it. You know, that was
No.
a bigger challenge
But
to
he
try
could
and get
change.
involved. But he could change at the cricket. Did he ever run some of his ideas by you? Did he ever talk about...
Oh, he used to, one thing that sticks in my mind he used to talk about, he used to talk about having, I don't know which ground it is, where it's connected to a squash club.
Oh, yeah, Eastlands
Oh,
is that.
he's
To
like,
East
she used to have a
London.
squash club.
He
Yeah.
used to always talk about having squash courts and things. He was
Yeah.
really ambitious.
Progressive, forward.
I was going to say, I mean, it seems that, it, from what I understand, he didn't have he didn't initially have an involvement at the club, and then, you know, with Clifford, then he did, and he kind of saw, he had like a vision of what this
Yeah.
cricket club could be, despite my understanding of them being quite challenging times, you know.
People set in their ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did he? I guess my question: how did he have that vision? Because it must be really hard to be able to see through that kind of
He was like-
murkiness, I guess.
He was like that in his work as well.
He was.
Was he? Right.
He'd go, like when we moved to Stoke, there were people working there, clerical people who'd worked there for years, and David were in internal audit.
Yeah.
And there was one fellow who used to call it ticking and flicking, so he would just went. And David, this is what we should be doing, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So he sort
Yeah.
of rattled a few cages at work, and similarly,
Yeah.
the cricket club.
But he must have seen something in the people and the
Yeah.
and the
Yeah,
club
I
to want
suppose.
to sort of bring it all together and
Yeah.
and sort of take it on.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, that, along with his personalities, because you have
Yeah.
you have people that try to do that. You know, I'm talking Premier League football clubs, and then all of a sudden they just, you know, they treat people with disdain. They're disliked, and they never get that message across. And also in local sports, but David didn't have that.
No.
He had that, as you say, Laura, come with me. You know, we're going to do this. Let's move forward. Which it must have been a battle, year after year after
Yeah.
year.
I suppose slowly but surely
Yeah.
his
Yeah,
followers
enough
will
people, don't you?
Yeah, that's
increased,
right.
yeah.
Yeah. And all the different sections, the cricket
Yeah.
section, the social section, the supporters
Yeah.
were increasing. And that's why, you know, without being too soppy about it, he will be looking and loving this sort of era now, you know, and he would be so proud. He couldn't be like my dad and Jack Hayes and Jack Dean and all the others sat on board, our bloody day, we wouldn't have had this. He wouldn't have been like that.
He'd be loving it.
No, David was always one that wanted to do that, to go on that step further. So at the time you've come down, Judith, around that period, you're obviously watching the cricket. David's helping with running the club, if not running the club, even as a treasurer. Socially, you became more and more involved socially with, you know, Peter Maudsley. You got really friendly with Peter and Donald and Elizabeth and Peter's wife Anne, and you had some good relationships and some friends for life. You know, I've got this from the emails that I've researched. You know, I could see it at the time.
I still see Anne quite often. Maudsley.
And were they helpful around that period? Was that a good?
Sorry.
No.
Anne's cakes.
Anne's cakes.
Just you drive on and then there was this like cake tray.
Well, it used to happen. Didn't it? Everyone walked up.
Yeah. Maureen Stansfield, she used to bake.
And bake everything.
She made a lovely sandwich, Maureen.
And you made friends.
Sorry.
Leave the cakes for now.
Yeah, thank you.
And you made friends for life there, Jude. You know, which supported you, you know, towards the end when David passed away, which is it's so lovely to read, and it's so, you know, these people are obviously have got old with myself, you, etc. Then David seemed to get into, and I can't remember what the catalyst for this was, but into researching the professionals, the cricket professionals.
Oh, he spent ages, hours, days. He used to buy all the cricket magazines, Wisden, Cricketer, and there were an Australian one he used to get, and he used to pore over it, and then he used to ring, he'd sort of find 2 or 3, and then he'd ring the clubs and say, right, I can see from his figures he's a good cricketer, but what sort of a fella is he?
And there were always some obscure match on telly.
We watch it.
You want to stream it, I
And you often had to go. We're going to Derby. All right. Going to watch them.
And that was to go and watch a play.
I didn't know when they were setting that. Let's just go.
You're going for lunch, and then you go, that's what we bumped into. Do you know what started that with him? Obviously he loved cricket, and he loved Lowerhouse. What was the actual, because I've got to say, he was a master and an expert.
He was,
You know, that a lot of us didn't even notice at the time. What started that off?
I don't know why did he become the one who chose the pro? That must have been when he was chairman.
Yeah, well, even before then, I think he was heavily involved. It might have been, as you said, Laura, that he's seen, you know, prior to that, with some quite, I mean, I didn't play with them, but from what you've read and what you've heard, you know, significant names, but there was no research done. In fact, I think Clifford was heavily involved in looking at pros and signing pros, and there wasn't really agents then. And I would imagine, and I'm only guessing, that David thought, we need to do this properly. We need to get, and we haven't got a lot of money, so we can't afford to get, there will have been, I can't think of any off the top of my head, but there must have been pros in the 50s, 60s and 70s that completely failed down here. There must have been. And they would still have paid them a substantial amount of money. And yet, when David got involved, crikey, he got everything out of a pro.
Good players for not much money.
A bit like Moneyball, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
They used to say that they often didn't come for a second year, however good they were, because they realised they weren't being paid as much as all the other pros around the leagues.
Well, how many pros went playing, you know, 2 of our best pros, in my view, or the lads I played with, Motti and Martin van Jaarsveld. You know, I think in there, love Lowerhouse, he'll stop here forever. Give them a season, the one's at Enfield and one's at Rottenstone. And exactly like you said, because David's managed to get them a bit of a snip.
For cheap.
They are better than even David thought, and they fitted in even better. So I don't think we would ever find out what the actual catalyst there was. It wouldn't surprise me, if it were Clifford. Stan, we'll have to ask Stan.
Stan
in the next.
But he didn't really have any, as a very average cricketer, didn't really have many duds did he?
No.
As a pro,
No.
they'll obviously be quality players.
Yeah.
But in terms of what they did for Lowerhouse,
Yeah.
there were very, very few where you'd go, well, he didn't do a lot,
he was
did
average.
You know. So it's a kind of I guess there's a kind of interaction, isn't there, between wanting to get the best and limited resources, and sort of finding a way through to get that, and to be so successful in finding those is quite remarkable.
Now
really,
you
isn't
say
it?
that, Joe, and I also wonder, and he never told me this, but I wonder if he really he preschooled them before they got here and got into the ribs about, because we never had.
Yeah, I think he did to an extent. Yeah.
Yeah, and would you see? Was
Like
he
he
only
pick them up
phone?
from airport.
We always
Yeah.
picked him up from the airport.
Yeah. But he always, I'm thinking back now. Stan and I have laughed and joked about this because we got Cameron Williamson and David was all over him and saying, "Look, this lad," and he was within 2 weeks. I was a captain. We had to have a set plan. Right, what is your target for this week? What's your target for this month? And that was never heard of.
And that was
It
how he did
that-
that.
well, clearly.
It won't
Yeah.
surprise me.
Yeah.
That's got Dad all over.
I remember looking, thinking, where's this come from? It was brilliant. I was playing decent football, so I was happy to do it, which is a bonus. And I'm thinking, right, we're going to do this. And then you've got Stan, Alan Oldham, Tom Sullivan. You're sitting them down saying, we need to have some targets. How many targets? The target's to be home for 10 o'clock. And they have 8 pints. But I'm convinced that has come from Dave, because Motti did it, Flegs did it. Yarra used to, I don't know if you're aware of this, because he was here for 2 or 3 years, top professional. And there are a few of us that he would sit us down in April and May and say, right, when you're going on your holidays, I'll tell you when you can go, because of the games you're going to miss. Which was difficult conversation.
Blaise always said that when Yarra was the first pro that he played with, that would sort of actively talk to him about the game at the weekend, when they'd go and practice on, like, not even on the field, on like the grass cuttings, and they'd like go through who's going to bowl, who's going to bowl at me this weekend, what are they going to do, what's their plan going to be, and that'd be sort of the first. That was the first time that anybody had done that. So.
And Yarra was very young then, so I'm not saying David forced him to do that. Right, you've got to do this with Blaise, or you've got to do this with the next one, but it would have influenced him. I'm quite sure.
But it's interesting, Judith, what you said about them, looking at the stats and the figures and everything, but then ringing up the clubs and actually asking what's the person like to try and see if they'd fit, I guess, because except for one occasion, I guess it's very.
I was just thinking of that one.
It's
Maybe
really,
he didn't ring his club.
No.
Don't know. Or they told him lies.
Everybody fit in. Right?
And I wonder also, did he research how they would play under our
conditions? Yeah.
Andrew, I can tell you we did.
Yeah.
He did, definitely, because we went through a period when we could see we were starting to get a little bit better. We still needed 3 or 4 extra amateurs, but the squad was getting bigger, because we got to a stage where we'd have 6 or 7 decent amateurs that could hold their own, and the other 4 or 5 were good enough players, but then we got 2 or 3 injuries or holidays. People were coming in from the second team that would be Roger Brom, who didn't want to play in the first team. Not so much Stan, because Stan always wanted to play there, but we had other players that were, and young lads who weren't up to it and too young, so you were never going to compete. So your dad would say, right, we've got to get a left-arm spinner.
Yeah.
Well, no matter what we do this year, we've got to push to get on, because you're bowling okay now, and so-and-so coming through, we need it. So he did target. And
He knew his cricket.
Yeah, he did, and he used to have little books.
Yeah.
Didn't he?
Still got one of the little red
We're
silver
going to bring it.
Fantastic, you should have done. We need to get that scanned in. We need to get Anne onto that and get that scanned in. So
If you can
people
read his
look at it.
writing.
Doesn't matter, does it?
He was a lovely writer, but you couldn't really tell what he said. Looked good.
So we progressed through, that period of never really winning anything, and we'll come back. It was almost then the person that should not be named. But signing Corrie, I'm convinced your dad thought we'd a chance of winning the league there. He thought we can get
so
runs.
close,
We can get the runs that are required. If we can, with pitches aren't improving here, if we can get someone that could really steamroll the sides, and that's what he did. Don't matter whether he was good, bad, nice, not nice. That's what he did, really. But I'm sure if David had known what he was like personally, he would not have touched me with a barge pole at all.
No.
And again, you know, for the benefit of the listeners, if you go back to some of the podcasts, if you want to get into intimate details, David did support us through that period.
Yeah, he did.
You know, as much as he had to be relatively independent, certainly when it was only April the 30th, and we were all ready for packing in, David was very diplomatic. You know, some other people on the committee weren't, and they gave us hell because they thought it was us. But David didn't. He supported us throughout that.
I read that he did a piece on the Lancashire League website.
Yeah.
I think when we won the double in 2012, and he went and he sort of talked about the pros and these like the plans that he had for the club and he talked about the 19 because you're mentioned in the 1997 year. We don't have to say what happened, but
We all know what happened.
but it was clear that that some people obviously wanted to keep the pro because they saw the stats and they saw it, and everything. Whereas again, David had the kind of like vision,
I think
foresight to see, like, well, this isn't going to be great for the club in general, and how we want to progress,
and how he wants to be part of it. You know, he's come into a club, you know, that is not being run very well. Put his hand up and said, right, well, I'll look after money, which is, you think, hey, are you mad? You know, it's the last thing you should be thinking about is the money when it's on its backside. But he's seen something that's happening there. You know, I have just looked back at the notes, and Curtis was in late 1985. That's when David came on the committee, and that's from the Lancashire League website, and which were a great side. When you think back to that side that we had in the early 80s, you know, with the cup final, so you know, you'd Lofty, Graham Bushell, Johnny Hartley, there were some really good players there. But David's seen that, you know, Curtis Hazard, and then he's involved in signing Tony Dordermaid, who is an international, you know, legend in Australia, and he's been involved in signing him. He's not given up when we've ended up, because that was a transitional period where those players left. And then we came through, you know, me, Blaise, Nicky, you know, a few other players of that sort of age. It would have been easy to walk away then, because we went back to applying for re-election in those late 80s and 90s, but he didn't, and he stuck at it, you know, which is a fantastic credit to him.
He was always 100% in whatever he did.
Yeah.
He was totally 100%.
So when you look, and again, let's try and compare it with, there's agents now, some of them are ex-Lancashire League players, there's some who are ex-Northern League or Greater Manchester or different leagues. That's all they were amateurs for them. And they're making a living out of signing professionals. One, which are nowhere near as good as the ones David signed, and David did it as a hobby, really.
Yeah.
You know, which makes it even more incredible that he's got us through all that stage. So obviously one of his big friends, Rusty, you know,
best friend.
Yeah, his best friend. You know, tell us some stories about Keith.
Well, he were around all the time, weren't he?
Yeah.
Where were you at this stage? You'd gone from
Pritchard Street, weren't
Yeah.
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 Got past your gate as well.
they? Yeah.
and Rusty's non-stop coming round.
I can't think of any.
They
Morning
used
and
to bicker with
groaning.
each other, didn't they?
Oh yeah. And Keith would always packing in, I'm hungry. And he used to come round, I'm packing in. And
That's not
David,
stopped, Judith.
No, I know.
Carrying on.
Dad would have to talk him round.
David would
Persuade him
talk
to
him
stay
round.
on.
But it'd be like, what are you doing, you silly bugger?
Oh yeah, there were no signs of affection, but
Yeah.
But they got on so well with it,
yeah.
and I think running the, again, like we've said, Dave, again, the people around him, and knowing that he could rely on Rusty, and as Joe's just said, Rusty still does a fantastic job. He's
Unsung hero.
yeah, he really is, and he's non-stop with the way he manages. You know, the bar takings have gone up hundreds and hundreds of percent, and yet he still comes down on a Monday morning, takes out what cash there is, cashes it all up.
Stands
That's
up.
right.
6 hours to do a 1 hour job.
That's right, yeah, counting his 20p. He's still doing it and still threatening to pack it.
Yeah.
So there were, there's no change there with those two characters. What about his time, when we were, becoming successful? Obviously we can talk about the 2004 Cup final. He was always part of, the little group that would walk round, and we all, as players, we'd think, oh, look at them, that's fantastic. And they'd call you and say, what about this, or what about that? And, how's he doing, with the Higgy there, and obviously Donald would be, certainly, 5-10 years before Donald passed away, Donald would be walking around the ground with him as well, and then he would have to stop and everything. What was that relationship like for you, Judith, when you were seeing it with those, the characters growing old together and loving that? Was that...
I'm part of it.
Well, no, I'm with you. I'm just thinking at the time, I used to love seeing that.
Yeah.
I used to...
It's just great to see friendships that have been formed because of the cricket club.
Yeah. And different. They were all different in the mannerisms, but they would have disagreements.
Yeah, I mean, David, Higgy and Donald are
Yeah.
Very different.
Yeah.
Aren't they?
Well, then throw Rusty into it.
Right,
But they would have the disagreements, but there was never a sign, as far as I was aware. That's it. I'm not talking to
you.
You
love talking about cricket, didn't you? That's what they had in common.
Yeah.
And the cricket club.
Yeah.
How did Donald start coming?
I think he came once. I think he was just passing or something and thought, the cricket match and came on. I think the pro might have been Prabhakar.
Right, okay.
Was it not Delroy Morgan? Or was that when he first properly started coming, it was Delroy?
It was Delroy.
Yeah, I don't know.
And he just liked the pro and liked the people, and then sort of cottoned on to David, and then of course I never saw David really when we were on that. Selling raffle tickets or doing laps or schmoozing, So then I just always sat with Donald.
See, I didn't know that. I thought that David knew Donald through some business acquaintances or something. Because he wasn't from around here, was he, Donald?
No.
He ended up going to church.
Yeah, he used to go to church, and I think he'd could try a different church.
Yeah.
That might have been part of it.
He fell out with vicars and stuff. Try a new one.
Oh, they had a lady vicar, didn't they?
Oh, no.
So he left.
It would be good to get Donald and Paul O'Brien together, wouldn't it? They'd have a conversation.
Oh, they got off, I'm sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, definitely.
No, that's fantastic.
And when he used to come with his crossword, you'll know this, Judy. Oh no.
He'd be there with a scribble pencil about that thing. Oh, Judith, you'll know this one. Oh no.
And he used to fold the crossword up, didn't he? It was almost like folded the newspaper, so all there was the crossword.
Yeah, that's right.
It was cryptic, weren't it?
Cryptic ones.
Yeah.
I can remember.
And he didn't used to put money in the collections. He used to put little note in, didn't he?
Or filthy postcards.
You did?
Really filthy?
Them risque ones from Blackpool. Yeah.
I'm not very aware of them, Jez, but
No, before your time.
yeah.
Ladies with enormous bosoms.
Fantastic.
But the swear words he used to,
Oh yeah, I like to swear.
But
in his posh voice.
So it didn't sound as bad, Anne.
Yes, forgot about
The
that.
softness to it.
Yeah, I went to see Donald when he was in the care home. Later on in his life, and he still had that. He still was switched on and talking about flags and.
Oh, he would beat flags.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he absolutely loved it. But he would, to see those and then when you more think about it, years before that Ken Smalley would be involved, and then bless him, the lad who's passed away quite recently, Steve Parrington. David would be walking round, and they'd all be sat down there talking.
We love Steve.
Yeah.
Part of our family, weren't
He was, he was.
Yeah. I mean, we've not really given him the send off on the Housecast. We need to maybe have a full podcast just chatting about our memories of him and like yourself, because I know David got on with him famously, didn't he? He was always together. And
Steve was one of those people who got on board with right, you know, what needs doing on there. Yeah. We used to come down on a Saturday morning if there'd been a do at the club and
clean up, and the raffle. And when you think Steve was never one really to push himself forward for you, so you'd had to get Steve on board. You know, would be quite challenging, I guess. But he managed to.
We used to give him a lift. He lived on
Nairn
Street.
Yeah. And Steve would have got so much pleasure out of doing that for all those years. You know, with David and with others. You know, all of us, you know,
as a family, we've adopted a lot of his catchphrases.
Oh yeah, we say that.
Get it down, you Gregory.
Yeah.
You call each other Wazzocks as well.
Shut your Wazzock. She's not wired up, is she?
We used to drop him off after we'd been cleaning and I'll go and wash all parts.
There's something snapped in that bugger's ear.
Or about it was some attack, weren't it?
Or some suicide bomber in some foreign country. Jez, are you working on that? He went in Berlin. Something snapped in that bugger's ear.
And then we'd drop him off after cricket. And I'm going to go and watch him living.
I know. Well, I saw that in the emails. Can we pursue that?
That's all we know.
Oh, that's all they told you.
His favourite film was Fatal Action.
Oh, he lent it to Mum and Dad, didn't he?
I mean, he recorded the video, Fatal Attraction, and he'd written on Fatal Action.
I'm getting a bit worried then. So Steve's watching Blueies. He's lent your mum and dad this video on it. Fatal Action. I'm sure Judith and David were all.
Me and Andrew were out.
So, let's just have a little, all of us can have different reminiscences around this, around the tea room and the things that went on there, Judith, because, you know, obviously, once again, like the professionals, like the amateurs, feeding the professionals and amateurs lines and this, you must do this, you must do that. He was behind the tea room a lot of the time. He had to manage it and make sure that the rats were kept away and everything else. Your time there, you spent a lot of time in there organising things.
Hated it. I didn't mind so much being in the tea room. I didn't particularly like it, but I didn't hate it. But I hated ringing everybody up and saying, "Can you work? What days can you work this season?" And I'd have a list of names, and I knew when the phone were ringing, they'd be thinking,
It's her again.
Judith.
Just tell us, so what years would you have done that, you know, that going back, I can't remember your official title.
Dog's body.
Dog's body, there's no one else. But it was like tea room organiser, wasn't it? Because you'd have all these volunteers, but then someone needs to get them together. And I didn't really mean it. When I said I'd work, I didn't really want to get the phone call. So what years would that have been? Can you try and get there?
The early 90s.
90s, wasn't it?
Yeah, probably.
So early 90s, and you did it for quite a few years.
It was after Anne Cochrane stopped doing it.
Packed in,
Whenever that was.
Yeah. So your role really would be to make sure that there's teas for the spectators, teas for all the players and umpires and everything else that went on.
And the committees, we used to have to do committee teas.
Talk us through what...
we had a special tea set.
Talk us through, and
scorers.
How would you go about that? So you start the season, you've got a list of 5 or 50 volunteers and you have to organise. How did you get the food? How did you get through cleaning it?
We'd go to the supermarket on a Friday or Saturday morning. David and I'd go to Hafner's to get all the pies, bring all that down. Just buy all the meat. Oh, boiling eggs. I were always boiling eggs. Egg mayonnaise and all that at home.
Yeah. So you're getting you're buying all the food, preparing all the food, and getting it ready. What about getting the people to come and help and to work? How did you manage that?
Well, that was just, I had a rota and I just rang people up.
Right. So you'd have the volunteers.
Did
you ever work in the tea room?
I think so.
Yeah,
I have memories of buttering bread and all that.
Washing up.
Yeah.
And we used to, West End room, or I think it was called originally.
Gin
we
Palace.
used to pay extra to be a member of that.
Yeah, West End members.
Still do. And I used to buy all the food and make all the sandwiches.
And never get it. Because they were called. No, they weren't the patrons, were they? there was the West End, and it was, you got a free lunch and you had exclusive use of that room.
It was quite good when it was.
What a treat.
Donald and Laura used to play Snap.
Yeah.
He wanted me to play bridge, but
You just
he
couldn't get
soon
it.
realised the level. He didn't bother trying, did he?
So doing the tea room, and forget profit and loss. You got some help. There was volunteers that would come, and they would basically serve the members of the public who were paying for the food. And then just talk us through. I remember it. You would probably have seen it, but I don't think you would have played. Around committee teas. Just talk me through that. How on earth did that ever happen?
I don't know, but it was David who got it stopped.
I believe so.
Yeah.
I believe so.
I
That
don't.
was,
The opposition teams committee used to arrive and were provided with a free tea,
That's right.
and it was. I don't know. You had to make a bit more fuss for some reason. Like I said, there were a China tea service.
Yeah.
And it would just all.
Some people were a bit snooty about
Yeah, they were snooty about.
Certain clubs.
Yeah.
Because there was that occasion, weren't there, with your mum
Yeah.
and the rats.
It was only little. and that was Haslingden.
Yeah,
And and it caused mayhem.
yeah.
Did they?
Yeah, because this little rat ran across the tea room.
entertainment.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
But it,
Live entertainment.
I'll leave this to you whether you'll leave it in. Ernie Taylor and his wife went mental. The reporters wanted to shut down. And we had, for the weeks after, there was all sorts of environmental health having to visit, and it was a real difficult, you need to field right next to it. I'm not convinced it was a rat. Give it a little field, man.
I once had to run the tea room with Sarah Halstead for a junior game, and she kept calling it a cafe. We're running the cafe.
Not quite.
Quite sure it's
I
that
think it
far.
was that ratatouille time when we ended up having to use the top end of the.
That's right. It was,
room.
it was
As a
Judith.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it got shut down.
But
That's
these are all
right, yeah.
things that Dad had to deal with. All.
Yeah. In
And
the background.
have
In
a
the
full-time
background,
job.
Yeah, and the full-time job.
If a player had a go at an umpire,
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
Deal with
try
the-
and-
they were always
Now they get sent
yeah.
to jail.
Yeah, I'll sort them. But you would never know that David was behind it. We would see Judith, was working the tea room. We would see, the scorers, the way things were managing there. The groundsman. But David was behind all of it. That was keeping it going. And he would he would rely on you getting the volunteers in. But David was behind, all of that and how he managed it. I don't know how he ever managed to stop the committee teas, because all of a sudden he obviously got in touch with the league exec and said, this is ridiculous.
I think
I
it like a
think he
cabal,
was the
wasn't it,
league
that?
rep as well for a while.
Yeah, well,
he
Clifford did
was.
it for years, didn't he?
Yeah.
Clifford did it for years, but then David
And
took
then
over.
Philaston did
Yeah, I think he went in and helped out.
Yeah.
Because the problem with, and Joe will know this now, and I don't know if he'll comment, he probably won't, the league rep is supposed to get everything that comes out of league meetings or different rule changes and feed it to the club's committee, so then they can act on it or can deal with it. But a lot of reps don't do that.
Ours does.
I mean, even now, a lot of reps don't do that, and I think that's why David thought, I need to go and find out what's happening. 'Cause I can't rely on Clifford sat in a league meeting like this, dropping his teeth, putting them back
When
in.
he used to come in back at the shop, he used to put his teeth on side. Have a break.
Becky loved him, didn't
Yeah,
she?
we had a dog
Our
at the
dog, yeah.
time, and he used to, like you say, his teeth were on mantelpiece, and he'd have a biscuit and be flying.
Yeah.
And Becky, our dog, used to just go round, hoovering up round him.
Exactly, yeah. Go, Clifford's here.
Yes, we were all.
Sometime.
They were all
We get a
chuffed, these two dogs
We get
apart.
out crumbs.
So that, again, there's a reoccurring theme through this. There's little things going on and big major incidents, but your dad's behind them. And he's keeping them, pushing them on. And it's interesting to read your emails. I think it was in Andrews, and you mentioned it as well, Laura, about, we're not just talking about Clifford. Charlie Cotton, so much respect and so much time for everything that went on. And obviously me and Joe, but we can't, we're chatting to you about it now, but it wasn't the older people all the time. We knew as players, and Blaise and the young ones, what David had done, and that's what I said, probably 45 minutes ago. He would be so proud that it has been carried on. It hasn't just disappeared. It really would, not just because of Stan. So, but before we move on to the latter end of David's life, because we want to talk to you about it, and we want to see how you felt, and how proud you are of what people say about it. Let's just talk about some games when you're on, because it was always sunny. The memories I've got, every game was sunny. There was always an incident. We sometimes won big games, and then we celebrated for a week. Go on, Laurie, tell us about your best games.
What was that game where me and you got all? It was some...
at church. I think it was semi-final.
We had all face paints on ribbons in our hair.
I thought we were going to win.
And we were rubbish.
Was it 2002 or 2003? I think it was 2002. We got beat at church. And Gav got
60 odd, didn't he?
He got 60 odd, but we lost anyway, so we don't give him any credit for it.
And Claire voice says we were like slowly unravelling these ribbons.
So go on. So you've gone to the game with like your face
LG
painted like they do in Barcelona.
Well, we were giddy, weren't we?
Because there was a big crowd on.
Yeah.
I do remember it. Their pro got 140 odd. Do you remember? They battered first Scott.
Yeah.
Nearly 300.
Problem, wasn't it?
They played right at the top of the square. They cheated because they played at the top of the square. And,
I remember that.
and he kept smashing it. Did we have Rudolph?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we had Jack Rudolph and Jack trying to bowl him, and he's smashing him over that stand that was there. How old you have been then?
Early teens, would it? What year were it?
I think 2002.
Oh, I'm not good at maths. 21?
Yeah.
Early 20s. Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. And then we all, obviously, it was so disappointing.
Yeah.
It was a really difficult
I
game.
remember one game, that must have been Enfield, after Martin had left us and he went to Enfield.
Yeah.
Did you bowl him out? Or did you take a catch?
I caught him on boundary.
I think you were quite pleased.
Yeah, I remember that. Really.
A through ball.
Anyone else you'd have dropped it?
I wasn't too bothered about it, but the guy went, caught it. A third man of fine leg it was. Your top edge one. And I'll never forget. Why? Because they all took Mickey and I full and caught it. And my cap round to one side, and they all said my wig had fallen out. But yeah, no, I remember that vividly, Judith.
I always remember. Me and Laura were both scorers for the first team.
Yeah.
They were great. We get £8 at the end of it.
All day, £8.
We can talk about some of those. Yeah. Because, without... Laura, you're a great scorer, but your scores... were fantastic.
Oh, right.
No, your pencil, the way you wrote and you understood it all. You understood yours, Laura, as well.
I'm rude.
But they were good times, weren't they? And the odd game that got rained off, we'd all be meeting up, wouldn't we? We'd meet up in the bar and have a pint, and you two would be with us all the way through.
Yeah.
Can you remember many of them games?
You and Gary were both the captains as I was scoring. You were both.
And you were always in the dressing room with us, weren't you? And
just like observing,
taking it all in.
Yeah.
Because there were some tough times through there as well, weren't there?
But it was always
And
funny.
you remember anything, was Gary more of a shouter than me?
No, not at all.
You got on really well with Gary.
I did. I like Gary.
Yeah.
As we've said on lots and lots of podcasts, Gary was a real fantastic captain.
He was.
He was another one that pushing it.
We flagged it for a while. Gary was
Yeah.
captain.
Yeah, it was,
so
yeah.
like between them, there were an optimism around the place.
But where's Gary got it from?
My dad.
100%. Honestly,
Good.
100%.
Yeah.
He got that will to win. We've
Yeah.
got to try and do something. There's no point carrying on doing the same thing and making the same mistakes. We've got to try, and that's why they laugh and joke about bringing the gas chambers in. Gary, we're determined to get people. You will change, and you will. And I'm not bothered who you are. You will play in second team.
Yeah.
What was that game you always reminisce about with Jez?
It was
was
some
a ball
cup
out.
game, and it rained.
Yeah.
And you had to bowl at one wicket, and you were the only one who did it.
After 22 players.
Yeah.
22 players.
22.
They all missed it. We all missed it. And I couldn't believe it. I think I was early on as well. I think I was third. I thought, we'll have to do this again. And one of their bowlers just missed it towards the end, and he kept saying, nick the edge. I said, didn't, we'll have to do it again. Yeah. No, I remember they were wet through. Really.
I remember
we did it in the rain.
Their chairman, because Laura was scoring, and their chairman, whoever it was, still around, were telling you now they've all got one bowl. And Laura learned how to do it, as if say, no, I'm not
rocket science, is it?
Perfected it since.
Look.
So you also mentioned when we've had the liaison through the emails, right? Cameron, I really like Cameron. I really enjoyed. He didn't get the figures really that he deserved. I think he didn't get supported as much as he should have done. But you had some great times with him, didn't you?
He used to be round all the time.
He done Albion Street, didn't he?
He did.
And we lived on Pritchard Street, and he used to pop round with his baggy trousers or multi-check trousers he used to wear.
Yeah, it was
big trainers.
Was it?
Yeah, it was a really... I mean, it's a shame. I think he got injured, so he didn't really go on when he went back to Australia. But he must have been only early 20s.
Yeah.
And he wore a bandana when he was bowling. Quite sharp.
Yeah.
He was sharp, and the blonde hair flowing by. 6'2".
He was round a lot, weren't he? Because he was so young, and he didn't. Yeah.
And he didn't. Well, I think probably just early in the season when he didn't. Got to know players. And who were the pro who scored a century on his first?
Craig
Light.
Yeah.
An hour in TV.
And he missed it. And he didn't get another one, did it? Ramsbottom at home, he got 130, didn't he?
Yeah.
Good, isn't he?
Yeah, we're going to win the lead.
I used to hate it. That first match, I used to hate it with the pros because David had been responsible for signing the pros.
And he was nervous,
if they were rubbish, which they never were, but if they didn't show
it's still
potential,
pressure.
I used to think, they're all going to be having a go at David.
He'd call them the knockers, wouldn't he? Knockers up in.
And they were ready to do it. As daft as it sounds, an amateur cricket club, there were, even the supporters on the steps who were all shouting, I'm not particularly there now, but there would always be someone ready to say, look, he's not done this. And
there is now, isn't there? I mean, at any point where you think where something either could go slightly wrong or has gone wrong, there's enough people ready to pounce. They're ready.
They enjoy
Willing
it.
to go. They've done absolutely nothing.
I know. You do wander around, and I think I'm quite I'm not very combative, pretty placid, but you do listen. And people talk quite loudly.
They want you to hear.
And they say something to try and, I don't know whether to provoke a reaction. And you think, that's not cool. I see things slightly differently to you here, but I'm going to leave it with you.
I'm moving on.
Sometimes the best way to do it. So when we've talked about Flegs, and it was it was a real shame we didn't win something with the likes of. I mean, Motti was similar, but Flegs was he loved it. He was desperate to compete. And you said in your emails that he was so enthusiastic about the club, and your dad really enjoyed signing him and working with him.
Another story about Donald and Flegs. Donald really loved him, and whatever fielding we missed, he'd always say, Flegs would have got that. Absolutely.
20 years later.
Flegs would have got that.
Yeah, you were probably right, weren't you? Because it was dynamite.
And all players grew their hair, didn't they?
Got that floppy hair because he did.
So then you we move on and you look at Ryan Harris. How fantastic that was.
Well, we all love Ryan, don't we?
Yeah. But he's there. He's on the wall we've got the plaque up in the club. But even I played with him a couple of seasons. You didn't think he was going to go on and do what he eventually did. For Australia as well as he did, and that was probably because of the side that they had before he got in. Did David do the homework around him before he came, just as similar with the other pros?
He would have done,
because he was only about 21, I think, when he first came, 22.
Very old.
Yeah, Ryan. So he's identified, And I made a note of this. If I identified someone who's a world-class bowler before Australia has, really effectively, and then he comes in and he bowls quick for us on a few occasions, but also then goes on and gets all the runs he got. I mean, I'm not sure even David would have got to those lengths to realise how far he'd.
Why was he his favourite, do you think?
I don't know.
Just his attitude.
With his Australian, we can do this.
Ultimate Australian kind of person, isn't he?
Yeah, he did like
Do you
Australian.
remember when there was some bother? I think he were out here, and there was some lads causing some bother down there, and he jumped up. I think you might have been with him, and legged it down there to sort these lads out. But he was just so 100%.
Remember when we did the podcast with Ryan, and Dooch described him, and he said it was brilliant playing with him. It was like when you were at school and you had a really hard mate. Yeah. And he was just there all the time. Ryan will sort it out. Yeah. I'll stay here.
Giving it all out.
Yeah. No fight.
I'm right behind you.
Remember a story about your dad, Jez, and I think it was Ryan, and Brendan Julian.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you were at Greenmount Club.
Yeah. Yeah.
And somebody, I think Brendan Julian had a lager and black or something. And somebody said, that's a woman's drink. And your dad said, well, you go and tell her. 6'4".
Yeah, they were mates. I think they were mates with Cameron, I think it was. I think it was. Because he's one who said he was sub-proing for another team against us, and he was in our showers and said, I won't wash cattle in here.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, that was pro, but yeah, my dad told him, you go and tell him.
So that was one of the things that David were well involved in.
Yeah,
changing
changing.
I can remember
photos of him knocking
I can remember him. I can remember him working on them with Bob.
Bob,
that's right.
and Roger Lee.
Yeah.
And Dad said Roger couldn't skirting boards.
Skirting boards.
Well, I think it's. I'm looking at some of the other challenges that David took on and that he managed. He was everything. So we, the team.
Yeah, we were involved in
it.
Did a raffle.
Remember Vinny?
Yeah.
People
They
would
did it with
say,
Vinny,
"Oh, there's nobody on it. Isn't worth it. It is.
It is.
We'll
It's
do
got
it."
another raffle.
Yeah.
And whether he made 20 quid or 200 quid, he would do that constantly. You look at the bond scheme that you mentioned.
Oh gosh,
Forget about that. It was him that was behind that. Just totally him, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, there was no one else
Persuaded
involved
people to hand over the money.
Where did he get the idea from?
I don't know. But there were another club who rang him afterwards and said, "Can you talk us through it? How you did it?" I can't remember which club it was.
He was, when you think there, he was just years ahead of those times. And
willing to try.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
And it was a fair scheme.
Yeah.
It's a really good scheme.
Yeah.
Basically, it's a free loan, no interest, and you get your money back. And and he just to generate the money to get us going. Revolutionary, really, isn't it? And the lease. I used to think sometimes, certainly after I was captain, and that was still going on, I thought this is going to drive David away. We were getting that close to losing the ground. I mean, that must have been so
now
difficult,
that he did
Judith.
talk about a lot.
Yeah.
He'd spent so much time and sleepless nights over it.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't.
We were
I don't know that much
gonna
about it, but
He would hide it from us, certainly from us players and the committee, but Stan would find, and then we would talk about it. And it was really one of those, and David would never be doom and gloom. Everything was positive. But you're thinking, we might not have a club in 2 or 3 years.
Yeah,
really, wow.
that's what it was like, definitely.
Never forget one, because he could be quite secretive. He could keep things to himself if he needed to be. And he rang me one Thursday, or he met me. He said, "Can I meet you on Friday somewhere? We need to go look at something." And he took me up to a field.
Yeah.
Did he?
Yeah.
Were you captain then, Jez?
Probably. I think I'd just fit with my last year, and he said we need to develop and see where we're going. I went up and thinking, how on earth can we make this into? I'll take you one day. It's like between Hapton and Paddy, on that where the big road is that runs through the fields. And it was a big field. He said this is for sale.
On the Greenway?
Yeah, just up towards the motorway side of the Greenway.
Yeah.
It was a massive field, but it was like this. And it was,
But that were part of the Dugdale land, weren't it? That's where.
Yeah, I think the Dugdale said
Yeah,
You can
that's
have
right.
this
Yeah, you can
instead.
use this instead. Yeah. But even then, I must have looked like thinking, oh, yes, we all could build a stand.
Yeah.
Trying to get
We need a cricket game first.
Even
But
though
it
he
was
knew it's
so,
not
He
happening.
was so positive about it. But it was at that period, it was a real. It might come back. It's still there.
Yeah,
But
of
it's,
course.
it was really difficult that David he shouldered all that on his own.
Yeah, he did.
Whereas now there's a lot of people there to help Matt Stanley and can manage all that sort of stuff.
And
But
now,
they're
because we've got the lease, because David did all that work, we can have grants for
Yeah.
stuff,
Yeah.
whereas
Yeah.
we didn't
Yeah.
have any money at all, did we?
No, and generate everything that it just continues, doesn't it? Once you become bigger, that's
Yeah.
why we haven't to be resting on our laurels, because you so quickly can go the other
Yeah.
way, can't you?
Yeah.
When you look at clubs now,
But
it's
the
like
infrastructure's there now,
it
isn't
is,
it?
yeah.
Yeah.
It's got to be
So,
managed,
yeah.
for however many years. But I think the committee Joy's part of are of that mind. You don't.
Saying very loosely. But I offer nothing to that committee.
You can't
If
take
that,
your foot off
sometimes.
the ball. Again, we've gone through a lot of the older material and how important it was for the professionals and everything. I think it was really, your email, Andrew, when you talked about Charlie Cotton and how good that was.
Yeah.
Can we talk about that period, towards the
As
end
much
of
as we want, yeah.
Just tell us, the difficulties that there were on,
Yeah.
building up to his passing and, how you all
Yeah, I
felt and...
The end of the season, he was fine. We wouldn't have known what would come in that winter.
Yeah.
October he started feeling poorly and he had to go into hospital for a couple of nights, didn't he?
Yeah, diagnosed with diverticulitis.
Right.
Yeah. And then
But
he come home. But then he just sort of went quieter and quieter and
Yeah.
kept himself to himself. But having said that, if there were a social thing that he had to do on a Friday night, he'd still go.
Yeah.
And then
Made a real effort over Christmas, didn't he? And
yeah, he did. Yeah. And then by the dates better than me, Mum. Like January, February.
January 22nd, he went
Yeah.
in hospital.
Yeah. Yeah.
I were out. Don't know if he was all his persons, but I were out and we were supposed to be meeting at Higher Book
Right.
for lunch.
Yeah.
And I was going home and
Yeah.
he rang me and I said, oh, I'll be home in 10 minutes. And he said, oh, don't go home. I'm in A&E.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he phoned the ambulance
rung an
himself because he
ambulance.
knew he needed to go
Yeah.
to hospital.
Yeah. I mean, he was, I didn't know anything about this, obviously, because, well, why do I need to know? But he was such a strong character.
Yeah.
I can understand reading your emails and what I've learnt since. That's what he would do,
Yeah.
Me and Joe would be crying our eyes out saying, oh, please help us, and feeling sorry for ourselves.
Yeah.
Andrew wasn't like that. My dad was similar. He's like, keep it to myself.
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
deal with things
Yeah.
how I want to deal with it.
Yeah.
Whether that's right or wrong,
Yeah.
we're not here to say, are we?
But it'll have took a lot for him to
Yeah.
make the decision to phone the ambulance.
Yeah.
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 He'll have known how
Yeah.
bad he was.
Yeah, he's struggling.
Yeah.
One of neighbours said though, didn't they, that he'd walked into the ambulance.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
were
Yeah.
that were good.
Yeah. Yes. No, that's good. Now, we can talk and we can reminisce, but I really think it's important, and I'll come to you in a minute, Joe, for this. I can't express how grateful the people of Lowerhouse are for what's happened and the fact that you're going to come. You've talked to us about this, and other people can listen. Difficult as it is, we've done 2 or 3 of these now. People get so much out of it to understand what he was like. It wasn't, I was that chairman that were a good lad, and sort of a few bits and bats out. This club owes it to David where it is now.
When he died, the tributes we got on social media, it was a massive comfort. And
And at his
really
funeral as well.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe the people.
When we
Yeah.
drove in,
Yeah.
it was just a
and
mass of
everyone-
people.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that is good that you can talk like that and think about those memories.
Yeah.
It's so sad at that
It really
age.
did help. Yeah.
The amount of people,
Yeah.
it must help you just to know. And the fact that we're doing this 10 years after the fact that there's that article that went on the Lancashire League website. You know, again, we could talk about this after we finish, and if you think in 2 or 3 days, look, we don't have that to go out, we don't like it, but it would be a shame because so many people will get pleasure out of it, and we understand, we understand now, and people, some of the spectators will listen to it and think, how on earth has he done that? It's difficult enough running the club now, but for one man on his own to take over from this committee.
Yeah, we're so proud of him.
And it was David who did all the different, like the CIC and like the bar is a different pot and all different pots.
Treated them as different business.
And so many other clubs thought that's ridiculous. And look where it's got us. Again, that's something.
People, the Unity, Rosegrove Unity, phoned Dad up and wanted to get him on board, just to help him. And after he retired, and after he retired, he were involved at Abbeyfield, Care Home, Colonel Slater's.
But he were never just going to be. He was never just going to be on the committee.
He was had to be in charge.
He wanted to sort things out for him. So, the same as here.
And in his own quiet way. He'd go mad at us doing this, wouldn't he?
Oh,
Why are you talking about me?
Shut up.
It was something to know. It would. So it's really good. I don't, Joe, what's your thoughts about it? Now you've listened, you never played under him, I guess. But...
yeah, I did. When my favourite photo of him is from Todmorden in 2011 when we won the league. I think he was stood with Kevin Bailey and Bob.
I know the picture.
Yeah. And
outside the groundsman's up.
Yeah. And there's a caption on the Lancs League website.
Website.
Website. Put that in. There we go. There's a caption on the website that said something like, "Familiar faces happy with something," and I always picture that. And there's another picture of him on the top boundary next to when he's leaning on it. And I can remember when when he passed away. I was coaching. I know it was January, but I was coaching, and Ben Heap said, "Have you heard?" And I went, "I have, yeah. I know that he's in hospital, but hopefully he'll pull through." And he went, "He's died." And it was devastating because even at the time, I think he signed Corbus as pro. I was probably 19, 20. You still understood what he'd done. And the reason that I was playing cricket on that day and could play cricket for Lowerhouse is because of what David had put in place. So it's very sad that he can't see everything that's happened, but it's amazing.
And it's when you talk, this is why talking's good. Talking, they're saying this because I'm older. When we were younger, I wouldn't talk, but it's good that I knew a lot of the stuff that David had done, but nowhere near as much as I should.
Yeah.
And that's why speaking to you guys, we can get that out here, and other people listen to it, and they're not bothered about the sad bit, thinking, what a man, how well has he done there? The cricket, and to see that first win and everything, as sad as it is, there is some real positives for us all to think about and chat about, and I'll stop mothering you three on Boundary Edge.
Do you know it?
So not going to tell
Oh, they're over there. We'll find someone else.
It's interesting how it all got shared though, because it was Keith, weren't it, who came round like the morning after and just asked how he was, and obviously
you went
we
to
had
the door, didn't you?
I don't even know if I had to say it.
No, I don't think you did.
And then he sort of went off.
He came here.
Did he?
And I walked in, cancelled my coaching like halfway through, and for the rest of the day, and walked in and
And then, people started coming, didn't they? Which were
we
really
had a lot
nice.
of visitors,
Yeah.
which were nice.
And then a few days after, we invited Matt Stanny and Charlie,
yeah.
because we're Charlie captain.
Charlie was
then.
captain, yeah.
Handed
That's why we
over a
asked
load of
Charlie
stuff.
about carrying his
Charlie were great for us as well at that time.
I mean, it's worth mentioning that because you've put it in the email.
Yeah.
Because Charlie's he's another one that just
Very
keeps in the background.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Strong character and focus
Yeah,
with it
Charlie,
all. So
yeah.
Charlie helped you
A
out.
doer.
Yeah,
To do
yeah.
it, yeah.
Looks for a solution.
Yeah.
And
Dad
people
really
get on board with him.
Charlie.
Yeah.
because-
Yeah, they would.
come on. We asked, would he mind asking the players if they'd mind carrying Dad's coffin, and
Yeah,
he
fantastic.
rallied the troops. Yeah.
You remember
Proud of him for doing
Mrs.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my sister saying, because obviously they came to his funeral,
Yeah.
and I remember them both saying, well, we knew you were involved, but we had no
Just thought he
idea
liked it.
what he'd done.
But that's what David would like. He didn't
Yeah.
want people
Oh,
to
no,
he didn't want,
fanfare, yeah.
you know,
And I
fanfares
said,
about
who were
Yeah.
all those young men?
Yeah.
They were all players.
Yeah.
You see him, like you were saying about photos, like when we won league and stuff, you can just see his head right at back. That's
I know.
exact. Can't barely see.
Yeah, you don't want to be in front
No.
of the trophy.
There's another photo on the 2012 Words of the Cup Day. Francois brought his golf clubs, and we were having a chipping contest up there in the morning.
Donald would not have
No,
approved.
absolutely not. But he's in. You can see him in the back, kind of
Yeah.
not fully made out, but
Yeah.
you can see him.
Yeah.
Just
He
loved
loved
it.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I can. As I said, I think about that. I think about that picture a lot. There are a couple of people that I do that are associated with it. David is one of them. Phil Aston's another.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
I have like specific.
Phil's one of those that got on board with what Dad
Yeah.
wanted to do.
Yeah,
did.
when
Yeah,
we
it is.
went to the shop on Cocoa Flame, Phil were always there. I don't know
Yeah.
why he took
Yeah.
over from
Yeah.
Clifford here. Still on Cocoa Flame.
Even when we moved up to Cockle Flame, Clifford were always there.
Yeah.
Judas,
Changed his route.
Phil would have jumped on because he knew that David was a doer,
Yeah.
and he knew that
Yeah.
he would. Right, we have to get this machine repaired because if we don't get it repaired, we can't do the pictures, which
Yeah.
would affect the cricket.
Yeah. Yeah.
And David would say, right,
Let's go.
we'll have to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to have to do it somehow. Crikey, what a fantastic hour or so that is.
Yeah.
Very, very sad, but a really, really, really glad that
been
you've
good.
agreed to talk to us, and we can get it out there, and we'll get a copy to you, and you can have a listen and see what you think. But on behalf of myself and the Housecast, and I know Joe, we really appreciate you coming on. People will get a lot of pleasure out of it, I guarantee it. So I'll go round. I'm going to end with you, Judith, before we finalise the podcast. But Joe, you said some fantastic words there, and I really appreciate what you've done. You nearly got us all going.
Yeah.
I'm going to say
I
this
love the
first time I find myself
Yeah.
filling up, Joe. Yeah.
Sorry.
Anything before we finalise?
I was Lowerhouse's first family because he was president.
Yeah.
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 I was just the first lady.
Joe was going to mention that. You've stopped doing it.
Oh,
I think you should
I
start
think it's
it then.
familiarity. I think is the issue now.
In fact, we've got the title for the podcast.
Yeah.
The First Lady in Hell.
I'm very just thank you for talking to us about it, and I think it's just as Jezza said, sad, but it's really nice to be able to remember David because he's amazing, really.
And to get things
fantastic.
down. That's what we need.
Yeah.
We need
Yeah.
to get these sort of things down.
And my only request is you need to kind of force Keith to come on now because he refuses to
Yeah.
come on.
well, who knows?
So,
Don't forget this. Yeah, we have a few
you know,
people
we've
who are
got to
knocking it back. This might be
oversee.
the catalyst. Yeah.
He's worried that we'll make fun of him, isn't he?
That's what he says.
But obviously,
You should be
we
used to
won't.
it.
We'll do it.
I'm going to say we will be kind, but yeah, you're probably right, yeah. Laura, before we wrap it all up, any just a few words from yourself before
Just-
you say thanks very much for everything you sent. We really appreciate
That's
it.
just been very organised, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know how to say it. Ignore me if I get down.
It's all right.
People lose people, don't they? They
Yeah,
love.
yeah.
Bad, sorry. But
That's all
I
right,
think
no.
we're really lucky.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, good. Yeah.
Don't. Because people talk about him a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like listening to the podcast.
Yeah.
You can hear it coming, can't you? You think he's going to get a mention in a minute.
Yeah.
And it's it's just so nice. So I do think we're lucky in that way. Because a lot of people don't get that, do they?
No,
Yeah,
no. And it's a good way to think of it. It's
Yeah.
a good way to think that is, we've got all those really good memories before cricket or away from cricket, really sad period that you all had to go through, but you're still getting the good memories, you know. It's only me and Joe that brought up talk about the sad ones, but I think it's important that we get those out there. So you're 100% right. He deserves everything that we're talking about, and you three do for being there for him.
He'd be so proud, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
Would.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Well, I'm glad that we can just play a small part in that. Andrew, a couple of points before we finish.
It's difficult to follow that. I can't really say anything different from what Laura said, but we were nervous before we came on, and you looked after us.
You more than deserve it. No,
And I think just talking it through, because we do talk about him all the time.
We do.
Yeah.
But when it gets like this, we all go, anyway,
Yeah.
stop.
Yeah.
Let's talk about something else.
Yeah.
But I think
and
just...
you've said things that, you know, we've seen it from your point of view as well. So
It's so, you know, talking is horrendous at times, but sometimes it just needs to. And I like to get things on these recordings. I think we have books and we have Anne, and I can pick Anne's brain, but to get it on here, it's there.
Yeah.
You know, when we've all gone, it's there. You know, and you know, that's what I think's a good way of doing it.
Yeah.
Judith, before I close the podcast, have you anything you want to just add? Any thoughts or?
I just found it really, it was good to say all this.
Yeah.
What Joe was saying about how it had affected people at the time, which obviously we didn't know, like Joe said. He said to Ben that David had died, and how it had affected everybody. And
You didn't know that part of it?
No, obviously you're not thinking about.
No, and even now, you know, it's difficult. You know, it doesn't matter whether it's David Wren or Jeffrey Hope or anyone, you don't get that interaction, do you? Because people don't like saying it.
No.
And they shouldn't at the time. No. And that's another reason for doing it now. Yeah.
We've got a book, haven't we? Because, there were loads of... Obviously, Matt Stanley wrote that lovely obituary, is that how you say it?
Yeah.
And then we had messages upon messages, so we... Obviously, Mum's wasn't on social media then, so we printed them all off.
Brilliant.
And that's really nice.
Yeah.
If you're in that mood, just open
just
it right,
really,
put it back again.
Yeah.
That's enough of that.
Because I bet you do
Modelling.
that. I bet
Of course
you
we
do that with your mum and dad.
Yeah,
don't
we
you?
do, but you're 100% right. You don't realise what other people are thinking and saying because it's a difficult subject, and we don't do that. Probably rightly so at the time, but I think it's important that we talk about it afterwards and talk about the memories, and because you do forget about the bit of crappy times when they haven't got a pot to piss in on the club, and David had to go in his own pocket. You know, we haven't even been there, have we? We've not even been there, but we all know that was a big case for him.
Because Keith would come round with money that David had lent.
Yeah.
And every time, as he would leave, I'd make him a broom, whatever. He goes, right, thanks very much, Judith, worth every penny again.
Brilliant.
Loud.
Top it right. Husband's just died. He were brilliant, weren't he?
Yeah, Keith.
You're a good friend.
Yeah, we can't finish on anything better than that. Rusty walking down the drive saying it's worth every penny. So I really appreciate your time and your efforts before. I know it's took a lot of time to get this together and a lot of soul searching. We really appreciate it. So I hope you've all enjoyed listening to it. Come back with any questions, email us, send us it on social media, and I'm sure these three lovely people will answer any questions if you want to know more about him. Brilliant. Thanks very much, everyone, and thanks for listening.
Ordered! Send more house to save the house!